Well, good morning, everybody. How you doing? You doing pretty good? Anybody feel like they're just so excited that July is coming? You know, it's halfway over. We're getting closer to that time when things just get hotter. Anybody else there? Like it's been, you know, to be fair, it's been a fairly mild summer, really, for us, from what we're used to in the past 3-4 years. I feel like this would generally be at like 180, you know, today instead of like 105 or 107 or 108 or whatever it's going to be. And actually, recently, I think we were even in the 90s, which is like, wow, I can't believe we were in the 90s. It's July. Are we? You know, hell freezes over sometimes. So, anyways, I just, you know, we really do love where we're at. We love what we're doing, but we also realize that a lot of you and a lot of us are trying to escape the heat a lot. And so we're trying to do things like go to a lake or go to a body of water, wherever that may be, and put ourselves in that. So some of you have the luxury of that being in your backyard, and some of you have the luxury of that being like a couple blocks away with a water park or something, and some of you don't have that luxury, and you have friends and family that you're just like, we're coming over. I'm sorry. You're going to have to deal with us for a little bit. We're going to do this. So anyways, we're having a great time this summer, and we started this series. Tim started off this series last week, and if you don't know Tim usually plays our keyboards, and he likes to be in the shadows a lot. Like, he's just kind of back there, and he's doing that, and he sometimes chimes in on a microphone, but he's actually a great communicator, so you might see him a little more often from time to time. And we love Tim and Jill, and they are at a body of water called the Ocean this weekend. So anyways, last week he kicked off this series, and really the whole thing about this series is that there's a place where you are, and there's a place where you wish you were in many areas of your life, in many aspects of your life. None of us are completely there. We haven't like made it really in just about any area of our life. Now, some of you may be like, I feel like I've really done that. I've checked this mark, and great for you. That's awesome. Most of us just aren't as great as you are. And so we have these things, these parts of our lives where there's like this wish I was here. And what we've said is that there's a wish you were here that God has for you. That there's a wish that God has for your life in all those aspects of your life that you'd like to improve or change or create more momentum in. So that's where this whole series kind of comes from. So we asked the question, what does God wish for you? What is that he wishes for you? What is the thing that he wishes for you? And we said it this last week, we said it like this. You see the problems of your past. And you see all the issues, the problems, the hurts, habits, and hang-ups, as they say, from your past. God sees the potential for your future. So you see the issues, he sees the potential. And that's where we're going to kind of go today. We're going to expand on that a little bit. I mean, God has a wish you were here in mind for you. And I don't know if you remember that song, When You Wish Upon a Star. You guys know that song, right? It should really be like, when you wish upon a star, it really doesn't get you very far, because wishes really aren't that powerful, are they? I mean, we do it, and we kind of have this superstition around it, and we kind of pretend like it has some sort of power every time we leave our family's favorite restaurant, which is, what do you think it is? It's pretty close. It's cheap, it's fast, and it's around the corner. That's pretty close. But really, our kids, if we say, hey, we want to go out to eat, they're always like, we want to go to Red Robin. So anytime we leave Red Robin, there's a fountain out front in the River Park area. And when it's on, it's not always on, sometimes it's not, but when it's on, they're like, I need a coin. Give me a coin. Because they want to throw a coin in that fountain. And I don't even think they do a wish, but when I was a kid, you know, we always did like, you know, throw a coin in, do a wish. And that's kind of in us, like that's in our culture. There's all these sorts of things that we do all the time, like the knock on wood thing and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just a part of culture, and we do it without thinking, and it really has no power. However, when we're talking about what God wishes for us, it's not about like this wishful thinking. It's about like his hopes for us, his dreams for us, what he really wants for us. Because what we say around here is God doesn't want anything from you. He wants a lot for you. He is for you. And oftentimes when we think about God, we think of him as this like figure that's out there that is kind of like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I want to limit the amount of fun you have. Like that's kind of the imagery a lot of people have of God, but that's the opposite. He wants to protect you from hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and sometimes that pulls us out of those things that we as humans think might be fun. However, he's got a hope, a dream for you, for me, for all of us, no matter who you are. So, out of this idea of wish you were here, there are certain things that hold us back from moving along that spectrum, from being in a current place to moving towards an ideal place or a hopeful place or whatever that is. And so there's a lot of things that kind of hold us back from that, but one of the things that I think hold us back the most is this simple idea: insecurity. Insecurity. And if you've done any kind of investigation into yourself, like if you've tried to figure out, to really get to know what makes you you, you might run across a few insecurities. I know that I do. And so what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to have everybody line up and just come up and tell me your insecurity. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. That would be awful. You're all like, I'm out. So anyway, but really, here's some insecurities, some examples. Being too shy to get someone's number when you're young and you see, oh man, that's a pretty person, I want to go get, and too shy to do it. Okay, insecure, like they'll never be interested in someone like me. Or maybe there was bullying that you experienced and it produced insecurity. I know that happened to me in junior high. There was some bullying that happened that really held me back for a long time. Focusing on our negative traits, like on the things physically that maybe you'd want to trade in or change or make different. How about sabotaging relationships because we think we're not really worthy to be loved? Or we think that they could do better. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of insecurities in our life that hold us back from really reaching our full potential. And those are just a few of them. We'll define insecurity. Well, here's kind of the real definition, okay? Is a general unease or nervousness triggered by perceiving oneself to be vulnerable. Now, who here loves to be vulnerable? You're just like, man, vulnerability, love it. I love putting myself out there and letting it hang, just putting myself out there, whatever my thoughts, hopes, and dreams are, and letting people kind of respond to that and criticize that. And no, nobody really loves vulnerability unless they've had some good experiences. But generally, vulnerability is better in smaller groups than bigger groups, right? At least in most people's experience. They got a couple of people they can be perfectly honest with, and the rest, they're not sure. They're not sure. Well, God has some wishes for us in that realm. God's got some stuff that he wants to do inside of us. Because we are insecure. You and I were insecure. You may say, I'm really secure. I'm secure in my masculinity, but you still won't wear pink. So there's some insecurities that happen inside of us. We all have them. That's part of our humanity. But where do they come from? Where do our insecurities come from? It probably started when you were young, and here's some ways that maybe you developed some insecurities. Maybe you've always felt that your parents were disappointed in you, or even embarrassed by you. Maybe that created some insecurities for you. Or maybe you had an older sibling that was like an all-star. Every single thing they did, like they were amazing. And it was like, if you had a sibling and his name was Jack, it was the Jack show, right? And then you were just kind of an afterthought. You just were along for the ride. Maybe that developed some insecurities for you and it created some self-doubt. Maybe you never felt good at anything as a kid. Maybe you couldn't feel like, you didn't realize what really you found joy in, and you never found a passion and those sorts of things, and you just felt like, man, I'm just not really good at anything. Or maybe it stems from some kind of abuse that happened to you. And for that, if that's you, I'm deeply sorry for that someone would do that. That breaks my heart. But for our purposes today, we're going to define insecurity in this way: holding on to the problems of your past. Insecurity, for our purposes today, is just holding on to the problems of your past. Just holding on to them, not letting them go, not moving beyond them. letting them rule over you, letting them dictate who you are and how you respond in life. That's how we're defining insecurity today. But no matter where it came from, it's not going anywhere good. And it'll keep you from a lot. So no matter where your insecurities came from, whether there's any truth to any of the things that create insecurity in you, holding on to it is not going to help you move on and develop into the person that God hopes for you. And it turns out that, like, if you look through the pages of the Bible, like, every character you find, with the exception of Jesus, has a boatload of insecurity. Okay? Every hero of the faith has a boatload of insecurity. And God works through that, and he works in that to overcome those so that he can move them into a way that creates the story that leads to Jesus and comes after Jesus. And it's pretty amazing that God uses a line of very insecure people to bring about the birth of our Savior, and that Jesus actually empowers those who he's with, those insecure people that he lives with, his contemporaries, to carry on the mission, which is passed on, passed on, and passed on, and passed on. And here we are today with our own insecurities. But God works through them, and he addresses them. So we're going to take a look at a guy in the Old Testament who's very well known for one thing. He's very well known as like a military might, okay? His name is Gideon, and he defeated 135,000 men with only 300. With only 300 men. I mean, just picture the craziness of that battlefield. I mean, just 300 men on one side, 135,000 on the other, and the 300 win. That is obscene. I mean, that's just crazy. But what we find when we look at his story is before this happened, God had to deal with his insecurities. So we're not going to look at kind of the battle part of his story. We're going to take a little rewind. We're going to look at a little bit of his beginnings, a little bit of where he came from. So we're going to start out in Judges chapter 6, verse 11. And here we are. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah. That's before she had her own show and network and everything. That belonged to Joash the Abizarite. Okay? This means nothing to you so far, except the angel of the Lord came and sat down somewhere. Right? So here we are. Continue. Where his son Gideon was threshing wheat. You know what threshing wheat is, right? You do that all the time. You get some wheat, right? You get the wheat and you throw it up in the air, and the wind kind of blows away the, anybody know? Chaff, right? And the good stuff falls to the ground. And you collect the good stuff, and you let the chaff just kind of go, right? So he's threshing wheat. So you need like a good wind for that to really work, right? Otherwise, it takes a long time. So if you got a good wind, man, that's going to really help thresh the wheat. Well, here's Gideon, and he's threshing wheat in a wine press to keep from the Midianites. So here we are, this guy that's like, he's known for this amazing courage and military might and strategist, right? And here he is threshing wheat, but he's doing it not on a threshing floor. See, here's a threshing floor. If you could show that image here. Is that in there? Yeah, here we go. Here's a threshing floor, okay? So you get the thing, you're out in the open, you let the wind kind of blow through. But what we notice here in this passage is that Gideon is in a wine press. So when you think wine press, maybe you think of this. Maybe that's your idea of wine press. That's classic. Some of you are like, I don't even know what that is. But anyway, so that may be what you're thinking. That's not the wine press of biblical times. This is the wine press of biblical times. It's a pit. It's a hole in the ground. So I want you to imagine threshing wheat in a pit. There's no wind, which means it's going to take a lot longer. So here we have, as we kind of know that with that, Gideon was threshing wheat in a wine press because he was hiding. He was hiding. He was hiding because he wanted to keep the wheat, from the Midianites. See, Midianites were known as a military might. right? And Gideon's people, they were known as farmers at this time. And so you had these Midianites who were oppressing them, and they were taxing them on their food and everything else. They were coming in and just taking. They were just taking. So here he is hiding because he doesn't want to give up any wheat. He's not going to stand up to them. He's just going to sit in a hole. He's a wimp in a wine press, okay? That's where he's at in his life. There's a lot of insecurity. But I just want you to just knowing the end of the story, knowing that where he has to go, understand this is where he begins, right? Every superhero has a beginning, right? And he's not a superhero, but he is sort of a hero of faith for his time. See, Israel was stuck in kind of a cycle of sin and rebellion and judgment. And leadership was come and go. And they were waiting for more help, more leadership. But then as a leader would rise up among them and help them, they called them judges, they would rebel again and they would sin again. They would run away. They would go through another cycle of oppression, a cycle of God trying to help them, discipline them, like, come on, come back to me. But here they are. You got a wimp and a wine press. Verse 12, when the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, now this is just hilarious considering where he is and what's going on. The Lord is with you, you mighty warrior. He's like, I'm in a wine press threshing wheat. How is that a mighty warrior? The angel of the Lord sees something that he cannot see. He cannot see it. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. See, when you understand the context of the situation, it makes no sense why God's messenger would call Gideon a mighty warrior, right? He was acting just the opposite. He was not mighty. He was not a warrior. And to you, okay, just bring it to us. Bring it today. Bring it to you. When you're in a pit, whatever that pit is, all you can see is your situation. That's all you can see. You can't see beyond it, right? When you're in a pit, all you can see is that wall. You can't see the potential. All you can see is what the issue is. And you can't see what's beyond that. You don't have a bigger picture, a bigger frame of mind. You don't have clarity. What you have is an issue that you're struggling to get out of the pit of. And I don't know what your pit might be. Maybe it's fear, anxiety, doubt, worry, insecurity, addiction. I don't know what your pit is. There's all kinds of pits that we find ourselves in. But all you can see is what's surrounding you, and that's just dirt. That's just a wall. And you don't even see a ladder. You don't even see a way out. You don't see a rope. You don't see a helping hand. All you see is I'm stuck in a pit. And unless something outside of me rescues me, I don't know how I will make it. And maybe that's you today. Maybe it was you 5 years ago, 5 days ago, or 5 days from now. I don't know. But you need to know this, what we're talking about today, to help you through it. All you see is the problem surrounding you. But what if God sees you completely differently than you see you? See, I think he does. That's why we're talking about this, that he has a wish for you. He has a hope for you. He has a dream for you. And he sees you in a completely different context than you see yourself. In a completely different way than you see yourself. See, God has a wish you were here. And maybe everything around you says you can't. But God says you can. Maybe that's all you need to know today. Maybe that's like the thing you do. Okay, stop there. I just need to get that in my brain. Maybe how you see yourself is not how God sees you. And maybe everything around you is saying you can't, but he says you can. You mighty warrior. He calls you by a name you don't even think you own yet. You don't even think you've earned. See, when you see how he sees, you can believe what he says. When you see as God sees, you can believe what God says. And what does he say? Well, Paul tells us, the Apostle Paul, who planted a bunch of churches in the time of the New Testament and wrote a bunch of letters to those churches that he planted and wrote to other people who were following Jesus and instructed a lot of people, right? Paul says in Romans that you are more than conquerors. More than conquerors. What does it mean to be more than a conqueror? See, a conqueror is someone who overtakes something, right? And in this biblical context, when you think of a conqueror, they overtook a land, a people a lot of times. But if you're more than a conqueror, that means that you don't just take the land. You actually, in his context, in his contemporary mindset, they would take the land. If they're more than a conqueror, they would take the people who would become subject to the conqueror. So Paul says you are more than a conqueror of whatever it is your pit is. More than a conqueror. Like you become the boss of your pit. If you are more than a conqueror of your pit. And he also says that you are a child of God. You're a child of God, like a son or a daughter of the Most High King, the God of the universe, the Creator, right? Like that's a pretty good title. Like I don't think there's a better one. Like if you had that identity in you, if you realized that identity, if you held that identity true, how much could your insecurity really do against you? But that's just a couple things that he says about you. So if you can see as God sees, you'll believe what he says. And those are just a couple of things that he says about you that are true. Verse 13, we'll continue. This is Gideon talking back. He says, "Pardon me, my Lord." And when someone says "my Lord" in this historical context, it doesn't necessarily mean Jesus. It just means someone higher than them, and he's being spoken to by a messenger of God. And so he's like, "My Lord, pardon me. Like, if I may, I'm sorry to interject here, but if the Lord is with us, Israelites, why has all this happened to us?" You ever had that question? Like, God, if you're for me, then why does this happen? Doesn't make any sense. Right? This is what he's doing. Why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, and they said a lot of things. There's a lot of stories about how God came through. Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? And if you know the story of the Exodus and all the miraculous things that happened, where's that God who should be with us? Because right now it doesn't feel like he's with us. And then he says, "But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." There's a ton of qualifiers here. There's a ton of excuses here in what he has to say. There's a lot of like, but, why, where, but, he just interjects all these issues into his argument. I don't know if you have that same tendency. If you think about God and you think about how amazing and big and how he's interjected in some ways in other people's lives, or maybe in your life, and right now at this moment, maybe you don't feel that, maybe you don't see that, and you're saying, if he's so good, right? Why? Really? And what we're saying is, I think I could do his job better. And I don't know about you, but I don't want that pressure. That seems like a bad deal. We'd all be in trouble if that was my job. And I think the same is true about you, right? I don't want God's job, okay? It would not be good. I'm not built for that, okay? So, it's okay, right, to question, but we have to come out of that, and he's going to help us out of that. But here's the thing. Someone else, whatever excuse you have in life, whatever your excuse is for being stuck where you are and not moving to where you'd like to be, whatever excuse you put in that gap, right, someone's already made that excuse. No matter what excuse you have, whatever issue it is, someone's already made that excuse at some point in history for whatever the issue is you have. Now let's fast forward a little bit, okay? This is like 1 week later in his life, in the context of Gideon's life. This is in Judges 8, and Gideon and his men were actually now in pursuit of the kings of Midian. They were now going after the kings of Midian, so there's a major transformation that's happened between this. But why, how, to this point, and it's just a week gap, he's in pursuit of them with some guys, and they come to a town of Israelites, and these Israelites are feeling the same way that Gideon and his friends were feeling. They were feeling like God had abandoned them, that Midian was really in control of them, that there was no way out of that they would just pop into town, right? Like, you guys seen the movie The Three Amigos? Yeah? Like El Guapo, right? So he just pops into town, takes what he wants, and then leaves. This is what's going on here. They're being oppressed. And so we've got Gideon, he's now in pursuit of them. He's trying to drive them out. He's trying to take them over. He's trying to be more than a conqueror of these people. And so he goes in this town, and he and his friends are hungry. And they just ask for some bread from their fellow Israelites. Now, the culture of an Israelite should be to share with their neighbor, their foreigner, no matter who comes in. They're supposed to be gracious hosts. But these guys say, I know what you're doing. You're pursuing the kings of Midian, and if we help you, they're going to come kill us. So we're not going to do it. Sorry. You're on your own. And the wimp in a wine press goes from whining and excusing to this. This is his response. Because he knows, he's like, hey, all right, that's fine, but we're going to win, and we're going to come back. And when we come back, here's what's going to happen. This is Judges 8:7. I will tear your flesh with desert thorns and briars. So how did we get from wimp in a wine press to like this butt-kicking, name-taking, mixed martial arts champion, like a week later, like he's just like, you know what? That's fine, you don't have to help us, but now you are becoming an enemy. How did he get from just a wimp to like, don't cross me, man? How did that happen? See, let's rewind a little bit. We're going to go back to where we were. Judges 6, chapter 6, verse 14 says this. The Lord turned to him, the Lord meaning the messenger of God, turned to him and said, go in the strength you have, whatever strength you currently have. Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. And then he says this, am I not sending you? See, when you know you're sent from God, no thing is too big to overcome. When you know you go in the strength of the Lord, no thing is too big for you. That's how he went from being a wimp to like this warrior, this mighty warrior. See, God already saw that though. He saw it before he ever felt it. He started to believe it. See, at the root of insecurity is kind of a fixation on our own weaknesses, the things we see as weaknesses. I mean, I know that you have weaknesses. I have weaknesses. Of course we do. That's just part of our human nature. But that's not how God sees us. He doesn't see us for our weaknesses. We tend to define ourselves by our weaknesses. God doesn't do that. He doesn't. He sees us in such a way that is amazing. And you know what makes this worse? You know what makes our focus on our weaknesses worse is when we compare ourselves to others. When we compare ourselves to others constantly, right? And we've talked about this before, but it's so easy in today's world with our social media, with our access to news, with our access to anything, with the ads we see, we're hit with someone else's perceived perfection constantly. In fact, Stephen Furtick, a pastor, says it this way: we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. we compare our behind the scenes, like what's going on behind the scenes, to everyone else's highlight reel. And that is so, so true. And it causes a lot of damage to us because we start disbelieving in ourselves and what God has called us to do and what He's empowered us to do. But the best thing most of us could do with our insecurities is stop comparing ourselves to others. Andy Stanley, another pastor, says it this way: there is no win in comparison. He even says it like this: there's no win in sin. Right? There's no win. It does not help you. It does not help you at all. So if you're worried about what you don't have, right? What you think you don't have because there's a hole in you, there's a weakness there, there's something you feel like needs to be built up, remember this: God has given you exactly what He has given you because He knows what's going to be enough to do what's. Let me start over. Let me say that better. Okay? He's given you exactly what you need to do what He wants you to do. Okay? So if you think you need more of this or more of that or more of that, He's given you exactly what you need to accomplish what He wants you to do. Exactly what you need. We all have this tendency to be like, we need more of this, we need more of this, I need more of this, I need more of this. Many of us look at our bank accounts and go, we need more. Right? We need more. But if you remember the Lord's Prayer, right? He says, give us today our daily bread. Not give us like the storehouse for the next 10 years. Right? Because we need to realize that we have a daily reliance on Him. So maybe we don't need more money. Maybe we don't. I mean, I know you got bills coming, right? They're coming due. You may be behind. I don't know. But He's given you exactly what you need to accomplish exactly what He calls you to do. When your moment comes, too, because there's going to be a moment when there's like, you feel like God is telling you, do this. When your moment comes, you can either be paralyzed by your weakness or empowered by your strength. And what I mean by your strength is not like your strength, but His strength in you. So when the angel of the Lord says to me, go in the strength you have, you got to understand, God has given you that strength. Whatever strength you have today, God has given you that strength. And you think, no, I go to the gym regularly. I've built it up, right? But you could not do that without Him. I don't care what the task is. You couldn't do it without Him. Like, we have a reliance, moment by moment, on His life-giving. You could not accomplish anything without Him. See, I imagine that when we think about and we're like, yeah, but God, I don't have, and I'm not good enough, and when we come up with all these excuses, right? That's got to be so incredibly offensive to Him. I mean, think of this way. Criticizing the product is very offensive to the maker. Right? Criticizing the product is offensive to the maker because the maker puts themselves into it. They invest in it. They say, this is my vision. I am creating this. I believe in this. I like this. And when you say to the maker as a product that He has created and made, you say, no, I don't have it, God. He says, yes, you do. I gave it to you. Shut your mouth. That's kind of how He... Sorry, that's weird. But that's kind of how He... I imagine that He would be offended by that. Like if we said, no, God, I don't have it. I don't have what it takes. We just start complaining and no. He's like, no, you do. I can see it. Stop wasting your life and do something with it, because I've given it to you to do something with. See, Gideon didn't stop there. He came back again, and this is verse 15. Second part of verse 15. Pardon me, my Lord, Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh. I am the least in my family. the weakest, the least. Anybody like resonate with that? Like, I'm the weakest, I'm the least, I'm the shortest, I'm the, whatever it is. Excuse. This just defines me. I can't break out of this. See, what he's doing is he's letting his past, he's letting his labels define what is possible for him. And what I want to say is your past does not have to be the promise for your future. Your past doesn't have to be a promise for your future. Like, it doesn't have to dictate how your future is going to go. Ping that. But your past does not have to dictate your future, right? It doesn't have to. When you look beyond the problems of your past, you'll begin to see God's potential for your future. And you need to look beyond the problems of your past, or the limitations that you believe you have, or the things that are currently holding you back. You have to look past that to see the possibility that God could do something great through you, in you, around you, by you. You're His. Believe it. Verse 16. The Lord answered, the angel, the messenger, answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. I mean, he currently, when he's hearing this, he's in a wine press. He's hiding. He doesn't have a whole lot going for him. He's the weakest, right? He says, I'm the weakest. I'm the least. Choose someone else. Do it through someone else. They're better. They can do it. I can't. Don't make me lead. And the message is, I will be with you. You will strike down your enemy. And you will not leave them alive. You've got a pit. You've got a problem. You've got an insecurity. You've got an issue. God says to you, you can. I will be with you. You will be its boss. You will strike it down, and you will destroy it, because it has no power over you. You are mine. You are a child of the one true King, the God of the universe, the creator of all. When you look out in the night sky and you see all those billions of stars, and you realize it's not just a twinkle, it's a blazing ball of fire. And He knows them all by name. And He looks down and sees your head and sees all the little hairs and says, I know every single hair you have, even the one that dropped off your head 5 seconds ago. I know everything about you. I call you my own. You have the ability, you have the power. I put it in you. It is my spirit. It is my strength. You can't do it alone. You're right about that. But you're not alone. See, I feel like we need to maybe go read this every morning, give ourselves a little pep talk, right? Before we get into things, before we get into the muck of the day, before we get into the trenches of work or relationship issues or whatever it is, we need to know that God is with you, that He is for you, and He has a hope for your future. See? Doesn't everybody need to know that? We don't have to hide. We don't have to downgrade ourselves. We can climb out of the wine press, out of the pit, and we can be more than conquerors. See, to see how God sees is to believe what God says. When you begin to believe as God says, you begin to see as He sees. And I know that sounds like, which one comes first, right? You got to begin to believe so that you can begin to see. Don't let how you currently see yourself impede what God wants to do through you. Paul's going to come up and he's going to close us out with one more song to give us a little bit of space. Give us a little bit of space for thinking about, to resonate with, to let God kind of speak to your spirit and give you that confidence, to give you that help, to give you that extra oomph as you leave today. Because you're going to leave the doors and you're going to be hit like in the face with the issues, the problems, the insecurities. Like you're going to get in the car and something like, you're going to have a voicemail, you're going to have a text, you're going to have a flat tire, something's going to hit you right away and try to take out any energy that you had from hearing the words of God, from hearing the message that he has for you today. Something is going to block that as you leave today, and you're going to need to know that this is more true than the roadblock that you experience. And so, we're going to give you a little bit of space to allow God to kind of just speak to you a little bit more. And as Paul sings this song, and as he plays this song, I want you to resonate on, to think on, to realize that you are a child of God, that you are a part of his royal family, that you are loved, that you are accepted, that you are empowered by his Spirit to accomplish, to break through, to conquer whatever it is in your life that is holding you back from getting where you currently are to where you wish you could be. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for preserving these ancient texts, these ancient stories that are not just stories, but they are historical. They happened in a place, in a time, in a situation, in a context. They're not just words on a page thought up by an author. They are actually records of history. God, we thank you that we have the ability to read them at any moment of any day, as long as the pages are by us or we have access to anything electronic. God, we just praise you for the fact that we have that kind of access to what you've done, to the story of how you've worked in the context of history. But God, today I pray that you would take this story, you would take this portion, you would take this little bit, and you would speak truth into our lives today, that we would know that we are yours, that we are empowered, that we are accepted, we are loved, and there is no thing that can separate us from your love. God, we all have issues. We all have things that we're trying to overcome, or situations, or habits, or whatever it is. God, we have these pits. God, I pray that you would give us exactly what we need to become more than conquerors of those things, so that we can be more free. And in our freedom, we can increase our impact and our love for others. Help your love overflow out of us. Let us be grace dispensers. In your precious name, Jesus, amen.